Hi, how's it going, everyone? I'll kick this off in a couple of minutes, just waiting for a couple more participants to come through. It'd be great if someone could ask me just a quick question, just firstly, so I can check that you can hear me, and just we can check if the Q&A section is working. So if someone could just ping on the Q&A, that would be much appreciated. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I got a few tests, a few highs, so I really appreciate that. What I will do is I will kick off now. Some of this will be a repetition for those who have attended the content and technical training. So I apologize for that. So the opening couple of slides might be a bit of a repetition, but then we'll get into digital marketing, or an intro to digital marketing. So here's our agenda. We're going to talk briefly around digital marketing in Australia, which will be some of the same intro slides for the SEO and content sessions. So I apologize for that. And then we're going to go into three main stages of digital marketing. The first one will be building your brand online. So really talking broader than designing, building a website. And then we'll be talking about the funnel. That age-old discussion in marketing around a conversion funnel. So we'll talk a bit about that, starting with how do we drive awareness and interest in our brand, and then moving forward to how do we drive conversions and what are the channels that actually do the both. So a tiny bit about me. I really love what I do. I think digital marketing, super interesting. Super interesting because it's changing the whole time. What worked yesterday won't necessarily work tomorrow. What worked for one client doesn't work for another. It's also probably the reason I kind of dislike what I do. You know, there's no kind of rhyme or reason to why these things do or don't work. You know, we're always experimenting and looking at the data to make decisions. Most of you on just looking through the panelists, or sorry, the attendees, most of you will know who Indago is, and we do loads of training for loads of different organizations. And this course, we actually built for universities. We were running some training program called Digital Cadets, and we built this for universities, and then we started expanding it out to clients as well. So usual housekeeping. The webinar will be available post the presentation. There will be numerous tools throughout this conversation, not as many as we have for the SEO sessions. There are polls, they're anonymous. I'll try and rattle through those quickly, but it gives us some data about who you are and what you're up to. And then if you want to talk to me, just use the Q&A, and I'll try and manage that as efficiently as possible, probably more verbally than via text. So the data, the first thing I actually would like to know, and I'm going to do a quick poll, is what is your role at your current organization? So I'm going to launch this poll quickly. I really kind of want to know who you people are actually, so I can kind of pitch this at the right level. I'm hoping most of you aren't digital marketing, but at the moment a lot of you look like you are, because actually we kind of built this course more for kind of finance and procurement, but I'll let the poll come in. So we've got a real mix and match. We've got a lot of marketers in the room, so hopefully I'm not going to teach you to suck eggs as such. I'm going to close this in a couple of seconds. So I've got mostly marketers here. Sharing the results very quickly. So hopefully you can see the shared results. So we've got mostly general marketing, a few digital marketers, and a few C-suite, which is cool. So let me just get rid of that. So the first thing I'm going to present, which is if you've done the SEO courses you would have seen before, is digital marketing in Australia. But I'm going to do it slightly differently. And there's one kind of key slide that I want to present. So the first thing is this is data produced by the IAB and PwC. And we can see year-on-year growth, and we don't have that heady growth that we had in 2015 and 2016 of the mid-20s. But just under 6% growth is still very healthy. This is the key slide, and I'll let you soak this up. Again, we're looking at year-on-year, and the different colors signify the different mediums that Australia is spending on digital marketing. The key thing to understand is that search and directories, now when we talk about search and directories, really what we're talking about in Australia is Google AdWords. Let's not beat around the bush here. You know, it's Google Ads. And what we can see is that it is still the largest and most invested in of all channels in Australia. And the reason for that is it's super, super effective. Now, the percentage share has changed over years. You know, back in 2015, about 53%, and today 45%. And the other channel that's soaked up that difference is general display. And display marketing, as we're all probably aware, because most of us are marketers, is banner adverts that we see where we're on a website and or an app. And the reason why display has kind of eaten into search's market share is we have more ways of doing display, and display has become more like search. Back in the day when we did display, we would buy through a publisher direct, and we were very locked into that one publisher. But now we can buy display in what we call a programmatic fashion, where we're bidding in real time. So if a specific website works for us, great. If it doesn't, we can immediately move our budget away to another website and even another position on that website. So display has become more effective, hence gaining market share, and classifieds has kind of remained the same. And when we look at classifieds here, really we're looking at, I don't know, Cars Guide, Domain, sites like that, kind of more traditional websites. So the reason why I wanted to present this is really what we talk about today mostly is around search and general display, because you know, between the two of them, soaking up 80% of every digital dollar spent in this country. So a bit more of a dive into these individual channels and their year-on-year increase. So I'll let you have a read, starting with general display with this 5.1% increase. Now, there's a number of call-outs for me. I think the first one is this is the biggest growth that search has had in a long time. In the past 5 years, display has always outgrown search. And one of the reasons is Google has become very effective in the past year or so with the way that you can buy media in a more automated fashion. Their technology has really come on. We always spoke around machine learning and artificial intelligence, words that everyone seems to band around. But Google's product from a machine learning, artificial intelligence perspective has actually been pretty average up until the past year, maybe year and a half. So one of the reasons we're seeing that is because the channel has kind of made itself a bit more efficient recently. The key growth areas are mobile and video. Mobile continues to grow, obviously. You know, we look around the room, everyone's on a mobile the whole time, and you know, that's the kind of growth that we expect. And videos had huge growth. And if you think about it, what platform can we go on today where there isn't video in our feed? You know, everyone's a publisher these days, and I'm sure loads of attendees on this course today are publishing their own video content, and wherever we go, there is video content. So there's huge growth in video content. And again, what we'll do is we'll talk a bit about mobile video later on as well. So what are these people doing? You know, we are these people, maybe not at the moment because most of us aren't commuting, but you know, we are these people. I suggest a lot of people in isolation are probably spending even more time on their phones. But my question is, oh, I think someone's put a hand up. Oh, can't see that. So, you know, we need to ask what these people are actually doing. And there's a reason I'm asking this question, because as consumers, we are very, very affected by advertising. Now, I'd like you to use the Q&A section, if that's okay. So if you're going to buy health insurance, again, let's just use the Q&A section. Where do we go? What do we do? We're going to buy health insurance. Now, I don't want the answer to be Google. Yes, of course you can. Yeah, so the webinar it'll be online, so of course you can get that. So if we can use the Q&A, where would you buy health insurance? Where would we naturally go to if we can use the Q&A section, please? So typically, to my mind, where we would go, we'd go to aggregator websites. We'd go to compare the market. You know, but again, what we're doing is we're going online to get that information. And what we can effectively do is we can put our clients' advertising on those comparison websites. You know, if we're going to go and buying a second-hand car or bike, again using the Q&A section, where would we go to buy a second-hand car or bike? I almost kind of intimated already where we would go for that when I talked about classified advertising. So we go to a marketplace. Yeah, we go to a marketplace, and typically a marketplace might be car sales, if we're going to buy a second-hand car or bike. And again, what do we see when we go on those websites? We see banner advertising. We're being marketed to, you know, if we're going to buy a second-hand car or bike, well, we're going to need insurance. So again, we're opening ourselves up to being marketed to. You're researching a restaurant to eat. Now, this changes over time. Where would we go if we're going to research a restaurant to eat? Where would we go for something like that? I'd say probably at the moment, the key one that we would do at the moment, probably be the fork. I don't know if a lot of people have come across the fork recently. You know, Keeps and Zomato might have been the answer that we would have given a few months ago, but the fork's kind of the new one. But again, you know, we're going online and we're getting marketed to very effectively by these other websites. You're looking for a review of the latest Star Wars movie. Now, again, we're going to go to Rotten Tomatoes. We're going to go to IMDb. And again, gives us, you know, opportunities to target these people. And if you're on your phone, typically, you know, when we speak to people about being on the phone, they're going to be doing anything from looking at social media or reading the news. But I think the important thing to understand is whenever we're online, we are being marketed to. The nature of having a phone with us means that we can track people by their locations. We can see where they are. We can see if they've gone into one of our stores. We can push product to them. And we as modern day consumers are being marketed to the whole time. And I've got a question for you, which I think is really relevant for today, or for today's age, is, and I'm going to do a quick poll, and I'm really keen to understand this, is, are you happy for your data to be collected and for you to be targeted by advertising, or, and it's a really interesting thing, we talk about the fact that we're concerned about the data that Facebook and Google and TikTok are using, but you know, if they couldn't collect data on us and advertise to us, then how would they make money? We as the consumer would have to pay for that. So, you know, what I'm keen to understand is, if I can get this working, it shows on, is, are you happy for your data to be collected? Now, I know you're marketers, but you're also consumers. Would you rather pay for the internet and not have your data collected? Or would you rather have your data collected and have things for free? So if you can quickly answer that. It's a really interesting thing. And I think most consumers don't understand the difference between the two. You know, they don't want to be advertised to, but they don't want to pay either. And, you know, these websites and apps need to make cash some way. So I thought I'd just ask, even though that I know you are advertisers rather than consumers. So 90% of us would rather be have their data collected, which is great to hear, because I kind of feel that sentiment. So let's kind of start getting into the thick of things here. So the first thing is that we need to build a brand online, and I'm just looking at the Q&A section. Yeah, okay, fine. So looking at the building your brands online. So the first thing as a marketer we need to do is we need to build our brands online. So we're not really going to spend money on advertising per se. We need to build a brand. It's a brand new brand, or maybe we've started working in a business and the brand entity from a digital perspective isn't where it needs to be. So this is what we're going to learn in this next section. So I'm going to tee this slide up by saying to you, this stat over here is a Google stat. As to how realistic it is, I don't know. You know, Google making that statement about their own kind of product is bold. But I don't disbelieve it either. You know, if I think about the way most of my internet journeys start, they start in one of two ways. They either start with me starting on a search engine, or typically through a social platform, and predominantly through a search engine. So I don't disbelieve it, but am I going to tell you that this is categorically correct? I don't know. But we as consumers and marketers have to believe that it's probably not far from the truth. And in that case, one of the first things that we need to think about marketeers is, how is our brand represented within Google? Because we're going to spend all of this money and time and effort. We're going to do above the line marketing. We're going to have our products in stores. People are going to go online and say, well, is this brand any good? And the way our brand is represented in Google is a shop front in essence. And so how's your brand represented? Now, I'm not saying my brand is represented beautifully, but I just wanted to talk about it quickly, because I'm not going to kind of log online and then log back off, because I think that would just be quite confusing. But if we look over here, we've got the organic or paid or SEO results. Digital marketing agency, about us, careers, team, training. You know, Sydney-based digital agency that specializes in acquisition media. Kind of says what we do. You know, I think it looks relatively clean, and it should do. And then this thing here on the right is called the knowledge panel. And typically it's either pulled in through Google My Business. And if it's not imported through Google My Business, it might be pulled in through Wikipedia. And we can track a lot of this. We can track calls, we can track people clicking on this, my website. It has pictures of my staff having a nice time socially. It's got Google reviews, it's got my address. You know, again, it paints a nice picture. Excuse me. We come further down, we've got Glassdoor, which is a portal for employees to review an employer. Now, if someone wanted to work with my company, they'd want to know that staff are happy. And again, you know, I've got 4.9, 21 votes. It's positive. This entry has 24 votes. I've then got my LinkedIn profile, both from a business and then personally. Google associates my personal LinkedIn profile with Indago Digital, but it's a nice story. You know, all of that is pretty positive. So I look at that and I think, well, that's quite good. Excuse me. But what you need to do for your own brands is, how does that look? How does that look if you type in brand plus review, or maybe a misspelling of my brand? You know, I've got one client which is AAT Kings. Now, do people type in AA separate T Kings, or is it all one word, AAT Kings? How's that typed in? So we want to type in different variations of our brand to see how it's represented. And really what we want to do is we want to control the look and feel of our website, of our brand in Google, by having multiple earned assets. And anyone who did a marketing degree will know what an earned asset is, but we'll talk about earned assets shortly. So let's just have a look at some brands here. And the reason why I put this as a billboard is, if I had, or if NRMA had 210,000 people driving past a billboard with this in it, they'd get the billboard pulled down. You know, they'd spend good cash to get rid of that. But online, it seems to be accepted. Now, as to why that is, I don't know. Do I think that's acceptable? Hell no, it should go. Because it's a really negative review. Now, there's only 33 reviews, 2 out of 5 stars. So, you know, people aren't happy. Now, I would pay money to get that removed. And you need to look at, you know, how is your brand represented when someone types in brand plus review? This is student flights. Now, this is product review, whereas before we had Glassdoor. This is product review. So this is people actually reviewing my product. Now, I was going to use student flights to book a flight. You know, I go online, I search student flights or student line reviews. I come up with this. It puts me off. You know, I'm now going to buy through, I don't know, Expedia, and I would normally say STA Travel, but I don't know if you saw, but they went under recently, unfortunately. But again, they're spending loads of money on advertising. How many people end up not converting because of this negative experience, negative brand experience within the Google SERPs, the search engine results pages? Breville. Now, Breville changed this, but I love this. Now, this thing here, as hopefully a lot of you know, is called a meta description. Doesn't really sell the product, does it? And actually, we pitched them and they changed it when we showed them this. But you know, again, it's not a good experience. So even the way that we have our meta description our advert in Google, you know, should sell us. Why us? Why are we brilliant? And controlling this is critical. And a lot of you will do things like you might have partner websites, you might have charity websites, you might have resellers. And really what we want to do is we want to work with all of these people. We've got social media profiles, we've got profiles on YouTube. We want to control all these profiles and make them beautiful. So when someone searches our brand, it attracts them attracts them more so to make a conversion than detracts them from converting and utilizing our services. So, you know, the search engine, well, I'll let you read this anyway as a quick summary. So the question is, how do we actually do that? And it really isn't complex. I mean, if your product's awful, it's difficult, especially when it comes to social media. Now, if you've got a poor product, if staff aren't happy, then I wouldn't be building a Glassdoor profiler and I wouldn't be, you know, getting onto product review. I'd stay away from them. But if I've got a good product and I look after my staff, then it's worth going on them. But what we really want to do is we want to start building assets. So again, I'd like you to use the Q&A. So we're starting a brand, or we've got our current brand. What digital assets should we have for that brand? Don't say Facebook, because everyone, you know, Facebook's the easy go-to. And look at some of the examples I just gave you. What profiles or digital assets should we be building to control the way our brand is represented in Google? Has anyone got any ideas? Sorry to put you under pressure. So if we could just use the Q&A. Yep, LinkedIn. Even for a B2C brand, LinkedIn's important. We want to get employees, so I would definitely put LinkedIn in there. It's funny, a lot of people struggle with this question. Google reviews, yeah, totally. Trustpilot, yeah, Trustpilot's an interesting one, but I definitely use Trustpilot. And actually, Trustpilot works quite well for SEO because they've got some competitors like FIFO and Review and people like that, but I quite like Trustpilot. But we need to think about this. What are we going to build? And as I said, it definitely we need to think about it when we're a new brand, but also as current brands, do we have all of those profiles? And what I'm going to introduce to you now is this age-old marketing concept of paid, earned, and owned. Paid, earned, and owned. And paid, earned, and owned was around long before digital marketing was around. And digital marketing kind of disrupted the ease of putting different assets into the three different buckets. And a lot of digital assets span across the three. But when we think about marketing, we need to think about these assets. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with looking at paid assets. So white pages, even though, you know, we're not, you know, utilizing white pages as we used to, these directory style websites still work for us. And you're probably going to have directory style websites in your own individual verticals. So for example, you might be in hospitality, you might be in B2B catering, you might be in professional services like an accountant, and they will have specific directories for you. And the reason why these directories are great is firstly because if someone, they often rank well in Google. And if someone goes there, they can find you directly, and it has other benefits from an SEO perspective. And they're easy, they're paid. You know, we go there, we pay a fee, and we get this entry. So the first thing we should be doing is checking, well, do we have all of our directories aligned, whether they be vertical specific or broader business, like the white pages or the yellow pages? So we should be going and building these digital assets, and often they'll rank in Google, and because they're there, and we kind of own them, so we're in a good position for them to rank. So this one is obviously very specific to travel. TripAdvisor, it's a site that we all know very, very well, and TripAdvisor actually spans across paid, earned, and owned, because if you look here on the right-hand side, I can pay. So if someone clicks that view deal, you know, I pay for that sale, so it's a paid. It's owned because I ingest or I put up my own profile, and I can put in my own photos, but it's also earned. And the reason it's earned is the better the reviews, the higher I appear. So here we can see, you know, we've got all these great reviews. So the Ashton Hotel has, you know, the most reviews and a 4.5-star rating. So we're all this platform spans across all three. So if I was in travel, I would definitely be on this website. This is something called Cash Rewards. I don't know if any of you use Cash Rewards, but Cash Rewards is an affiliate website. Again, you pay per sale, so you work on what's called a cost per acquisition basis, which we'll discuss a bit later. But I would be on websites like this. Again, we can get this to rank, and I'm just paying for this profile in essence. So, we need to build these assets, and the first kind of assets we build would be paid. And then we also want to build earned assets. Earned assets are difficult. Wikipedia, to my mind, is the best website on the internet. It is just phenomenal. Now, not everyone can have a profile there. I tried to get a profile for Indago, couldn't get a profile up there. We're not important enough, much to my dismay. And I will try again and again. I try every kind of 6 months. But having an earned asset in Expedia is worth a lot of money. From an SEO perspective, from a branding perspective. And if we are running brands that are fairly chunky, we should definitely have an entry. And if maybe we're a global brand, we've got a global entry, but our local Australian or New Zealand brand isn't being represented fairly, again, we want to be represented on there properly with a link to our website. So again, we want to build all of these assets. Now, Wikipedia ranks really well in Google. And if you remember, it also can appear on that knowledge graph on the right-hand side. Another earned asset would be product review. Now, product review is a very scathing website, and we have to be very, very careful when we allow people to review our product. Because if our product isn't good, we're going to take an absolute shoeing, a beating. And we can see here Expedia taking a huge beating. 1.5 stars out of 1,000 paints them in a really, really bad light. So when we start building these earned assets, especially when the consumer or our customer in a B2B space is given the ability to rate us, we need to be extremely careful. But again, I'd look to, what of those profiles can we build? Glassdoor we've discussed already. And this is quite interesting with Expedia. Apparently the product's rubbish, but I'd suggest there's a negative connotation for people leaving reviews on product review, but people love working there. I mean, if you think about that, 95% of people out of 2.5 thousand reviews would refer Expedia as a company to go and work. It's massive, yeah? And then the final out of the paid, earned, and owned trifecta is owned. Now, owned is where we all should be fighting heavily. If we are producing videos, we should have a YouTube account, and we should have playlists within that, and we should give it love and attention. We should link to it. We should promote our videos. We should do all the beautiful things that we should do when we upload videos to YouTube. We should use annotations, descriptions. We should get the analog of the annotation of all the video content, the words spoken, uploaded. We should really spend a lot of time making sure it's beautiful. And that goes to the same with any owned asset. LinkedIn, someone mentioned earlier, again, we could argue this is an owned asset. It's also a paid asset. But from an owned perspective, if we want our social media profiles to rank, whether it be LinkedIn or Facebook, we need to give them love. We need to update posts to them regularly. We need to get more followers to it. We need to get interaction rates up. We can't just think, oh, well, we're going to have a LinkedIn profile and it's going to work wonders. We need to give it that love and support. And all of these owned assets we should be giving love and support to, so we can control our brand in Google and give it a beautiful representation. And also, it doesn't matter where our customer is, wherever they're going, we're giving them a beautiful experience of our brands and basically marketing to them. And I think if a lot of you looked at this, I think you'd find that you've got relatively negative experiences somewhere. And I think you are not controlling the Google SERPs, because what I would rather is all of the SERPs, the search engine result pages, are owned media rather than earned or paid. Because if I own it, if there's something negative going out there, I own it. Whereas, if I'm reliant on PR or Glassdoor, if something goes wrong, I'm in trouble. You know, I can't retrospectively fix it. So I would want as much of the owned assets appearing in Google as possible. That would be what I'd be looking to do. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about web development quickly now, or sorry, web design. So I'll let you read. Modern day websites, it's just fashion, yeah? You know, a website looks different to how it looked 5 years ago, and it will look different in 5 years' time to now. And a modern day website, to my mind, and I'm sure people would disagree and they'd have other ideas, they have these kind of, these facets in them. And really what I want to show you here is again, you're doing marketing, we're paying, we're building these assets. But the long and short of it is that typically a conversion happens on our own website. Does your website work? Increasing your conversion rate in your website from, I don't know, 1% to 1.1%, you know, an increase in 10% overall conversion is a game changer. And too often we focus on our external marketing, bringing people to the website, and we don't focus on the quality of our website. And I'm sure loads of you sit there and think, oh, my website's awful. I hate my website. The day it launched, I didn't like it. You know, it should always be being updated. And I think really what's important is that we all, as consumers, and I know we're marketers in this room, but we are also consumers, we all understand web design. So what I've used is I've used a tool called Wayback Machine. You can see it in the bottom left. If you've not used it before, awesome, awesome tool. It basically takes snapshots of the internet from, you know, back in the day. And what I'm comparing here is the old ABC Online to ABC Online as it looked in, I think, 2017 or something like that, 2018. What does ABC want us to do? Its reason for being is it wants you to read news. That's what it's trying to do. So if we look at this new page, it kind of does what I said. It's kind of got this blocky look, huge images, much more image-led than we had before. You know, I can see the weather in the top right straight away. It's got a double nav structure, so I can find the information I want really easily, but it's giving me the main news of the day, so I can go straight into something. And if we look at this old kind of cluttered version, it was very, very difficult to use. And, you know, it looks old, obviously. Let's look at BOM. So, you know, Bureau of Meteorology, I don't say I massively love this version of it, but straight off the cuff, it's telling me the weather in the key cities around the country. Because what do I do when I go to BOM? You know, I want to know what the weather is. Where on this old site, cluttered, didn't understand what it was. And again here, you know, they give the other kind of key functionally, radars, images, and then obviously we've got a bit of banner advertising here as well. Real estate. I didn't mind the old real estate website back in the day, but again here, if you look at the real estate site here, we've got this huge hero banner in very clean colors, that kind of IKEA looking modern day family. We've got this kind of iconography straight into it, you know, the key things they do or the key areas they want to push you into researching, pushing a product, or are you selling or staying? And then again, I can just search straight away. And we've got this beautiful tabular structure where I can search within the buy, the rent, the sold, or property value, or find an agent. And then my more kind of traditional navigation structures at the very top. So we can see how this has come on. This is Telstra, the old website, which I actually used to work on, probably one of the most disgusting websites that you could ever see. I mean, look at that. How could anyone buy product from that site? How did it ever work? Whoever imagined a site like that? Whereas here, if we look at it again, we've got this huge hero image, IKEA family, everyone laughing around a TV, having good fun. And then they know what most people do. They want to log in, pay their bill. They're moving house, so it gives them that kind of quick access to the parts of the site they want. And then again, if it's not giving me what I want, I've got this tabular structure of I'm a person, I'm a small business, I'm an enterprise business. So again, a lot more intuitive and modern looking. And this one. I'm not massively into Google from many perspectives, but from a technology perspective, I couldn't respect them anymore. And when Google launched, It was the day there was the race on to see who was going to win the search engine race. And most of the search engines were what we would call portals. You would go there and yes, they had a search bar, but they also had links to weather, news, finance. I mean, there was huge amounts of information on these pages. And what Google did is they turned around and said, well, screw that. You know, what's my reason for being? We're a search engine. We want people to search. And they came up with this structure on the left. And it was shot down. Everyone thought it was ridiculous. It's never going to work. It's absolute, you know, lunacy. This isn't the way if people want to digest information. It's just not going to work. And obviously it worked. You know, they did one simple thing. And if we look at what Google do now, it's even simpler. And really, I believe that Google have kind of controlled modern day web development for many reasons. Firstly, with the way that people are trying to do SEO, Google massively pushed the way the site should work. So Google are constructing the way modern made design worked, but also with this simple approach back in the day, which was, what do people want to do? They want to search. Let's make it very easy and intuitive for them to do so. So I think, you know, Google really kind of helped web design. And us as marketeers, even though we're not web designers and we're not developers, you know, the website is critical and the way it functions is critical, and we should have a massive say in the way it does, because we're driving potential customers to that asset. And that's the most important of all of our assets. So I believe that you're all web designers, and I kind of want to prove it to you really quickly. So I'm going to open up another poll and I'm going to ask you, where do these common elements go? And let's see if we can genuinely agree where these common web elements go. So the top one is, where on your website would you place your logo? Top right, top left, bottom right, bottom right, bottom left. The same with your phone number. So if you can see that, let's populate this. It's not a trick question. Everyone's a bit slow to the mark. I think I've got a few scared people. Wow, we've got some difference of opinion. Interesting. Give you 5 seconds and then we'll shut off. So where would you place these common website elements on your website? Logo. Now, to my mind, and I'm sorry the people who said top right, your logo is always kind of top left. If you think about it, and what happens when you click your logo, it takes you to your homepage. And I think that's kind of very standard. So your top writers, you need to, your poor web designers, you probably shouldn't go into that field. Where would you place your phone number? Again, mix and match really. You can place it anywhere, but standard really is top right. Most of the time you'll see it's on the top right. And as consumers, you kind of naturally gravitate to the top right. Live chat's a really interesting one, and bottom right is kind of standard, but at the moment you see people testing it all over the place. But I think whether, you know, some people right and some people wrong, most of us said where it kind of, you know, should be. So, you know, top left, top right, and bottom right is where the majority of you were saying. So we can see that we're affected, and naturally as consumers and marketers, we know where these facets go. There are certain things in web design which are just a given, and you wouldn't build a site any other way. So moving on. So if you think about the structure of today's session, it's you know, what assets do we need to build, and then how do we start pushing those assets? And what we're going to talk about now, after we give you this conclusion, we're going to talk about awareness. So building a brand. This isn't about driving sales. It's about getting people, or getting our brand in front of relevant customers. So this is what you're going to learn, hopefully. So when we buy media, we typically, and there's always other ways of doing things, we typically buy on these 3 methods. And we typically report on those 3 plus some other success metrics. Let me explain to you the difference between the three. Now, most of you seem to be marketeers, so, fingers crossed I'm not teaching you to suck eggs, or I probably am. CPM means cost per mil, cost per thousand. And this is the way we buy display. And if you remember, display are banners. We're not buying on people clicking, we're buying on people viewing. Okay? The next purchase method is cost per click. We pay when someone actually clicks. Okay? And then the third one that I've detailed is cost per acquisition. We don't pay if they view, we don't pay if they click, we pay if they buy. So if you think about the nature of those three different payment or advertising metrics or methods, CPM is very brandy. Someone saw it, they clicked it, not the be all and end all. So really, when we're doing brand campaigns, that would be one of the key metrics we'd look at. How many people saw my advert, like you would do on TV. If we're starting to get more conversion focused, we'd start to look at cost per click. Couldn't care how many people saw my advert. How many people came to my website or to my digital asset? And really, I'd love to buy my media on a cost per acquisition. I don't care if people saw it. I don't care if people clicked. All I care is if they bought. And we talked about sites like Compare the Market and Finder and those kind of aggregator sites or marketplaces, whatever we want to call them. Typically, we'll be buying on a cost per acquisition on those, or sometimes a mix of all. But really the important thing to understand is the more awareness the channel is or its focus is, the more likely we are to be buying on a CPM, a cost per mil, and the more acquisition focused is on a cost per acquisition. Depending on our goals, depends on how we buy our media. And then we report. Again, we can report on those three, but we'd also really, if we're trying to drive sales, which I know a lot of you are because you're your customers that we work with, ROI, so return on investment, return on ad spend, which is ROAS, are kind of key metrics. And really where we want to get to are things like ARPU, which is average revenue per user, or ALTV, which is average lifetime value. Really understanding how much we drive for a customer. So I can see certain of you are e-commerce, and for an e-commerce client, you typically, you're not going to make much money on that first sale, but you're going to capture that customer and sell to them again. And it might be a seasonal product. We sell to them every year, Father's Day, for example, or swimwear, or we might be selling to them regularly because, we provide product that's relevant all year long, like, I don't know, Office Works or something like that. And we really want to get there. But really, if we're buying cost per mil, it's more awareness, and cost per click and cost per acquisition purchases are more around driving sales. So in the next, because this part of the presentation is around awareness, we're buying in a CPM. Now, when we're buying media, what we kind of talk about as marketeers, very similar to paid, earned, and owned, is we talk about a funnel. I think it's super old school. I absolutely hate presenting a funnel. It kind of actually makes me physically ill, to be honest with you. Even looking at it makes me feel a bit ill, but it works. And what we're talking around is at the awareness stage, our funnel's wide. Loads of them aren't going to be relevant. Loads of them aren't going to be purchasing from us. We're just getting our brand in front of people. It's not a conversion medium. And then we drive them further down the funnel. We get them interested. So maybe they check out our LinkedIn profile. Maybe they see that our employees are really happy on Glassdoor. We get them a bit interested. Then they start to consider us. Oh, you know what? I might use those guys. Indago, they seem all right. They seem better than some of their competitors. And then they start getting to evaluate. Okay, well, here's awareness, and here's Indago, and here's competitor A and competitor B. What makes them different? What do I like about this one, and what do I like about that one? And what's that kind of, how do I evaluate the difference between them? And then they come down to the bottom and they sell. They're really interested, and we actually, they're going to buy from us. And that funnel works. And different advertising or different digital advertising mediums work differently and service different needs. But I don't like the funnel. What Google produced, and I think all of us should do this for our own vertical and our own brands. For travel, Google produced something different. Google produced this. It's the same thing, but they made it more human. They made it more relevant to travel. And I just like it. And I just think we should all be doing that for ourselves. So, and we can all relate to this as consumers. I want to get away moments. You know, I've had a really bad day at work. I've spent 2 hours on this horrible webinar with Gary. You know, Jesus, I just want to go on holiday. In fact, I can't even go on holiday anywhere in the world. So I'm going to go on holiday somewhere in New South Wales or, you know, New Zealand, because I'm kind of stuck in my country and or state. And then we kind of get to that time to plan a moment. So we're kind of getting down the funnel. You know, I'm starting to plan, where would I go? What time of year do I want to go? When's this festival on that I want to go to? And, you know, we're starting to think about it. And on the far right, let's book it moments. It's the same as the funnel, but it's told in a more beautiful fashion, more relevant to this specific vertical. And I think we should all be producing this. And what we're going to talk about now is dreaming. So we're at the top of the funnel. So what you can see is I've mashed up, because I'm super creative like that, the funnel with Google's methodology. And what we're doing is we're talking around awareness or dreaming. And what I've then done here in this graph, if you can call it a graph, I'd say it's more of a table, is I've detailed the main digital marketing channels that are available to us. Of course, there's more, but the main ones. And if you remember, the main ones that we spend on are display, and video and display are very similar, and search marketing. And we talk a bit about social as well. But the way I've done this is the further to the left the channel is, the more aligned it is with dreaming, awareness. The further to the right it is, the better it is at booking or selling. All channels can do all things. And that's why there's words on all of them. Further to the left is better for awareness and dreaming. Further to the right is better for booking and buying. And you can see that the words change depending on what we're trying to do. So all channels can help everything, but they are specialists. Display is an awareness specialist. And that's what we're going to talk a bit about now. So we're going to do a bit of a mashup of display, video, and well, a bit of content, a bit of social. So we'll kind of talk a bit about all of them. So what is a banner? I mean, here we can see on news.com, I do a lot of research on the Northern Territories, because one of my clients does a lot of work in the Northern Territories. So I'm always getting targeted with NT type information. And then over here, I've got life insurance clients. So I'm getting a lot of targeted on life insurance. And this is banner advertising. We all see it the whole time. This is banner advertising with an app. As to why Maserati are targeting me, I've got absolutely no idea. I drive a 14-year-old Hyundai iX35. I'm very, very far away from being able to afford a Maserati, unfortunately. But again, there's some banner advertising. And if you can click this I, typically it will tell you why the banner is being served to you and who by. But my question to you, and we're going to do another poll, is this. How many people click on banners? So let's do our poll. For every 1,000 people in Australia that see a banner, how many people click on it? Clear winner at the moment. Give you a couple more seconds. It's changing. Still a clear winner, still a clear winner. Still a clear winner. So between 10 and 100. So if you called that 10, that would be 1%, yeah? So in reality, what we're saying is between 1 and 10%. Now, the interesting thing about it is, this is from Google Think, 0.09%, 0.1%. So for every 1,000 people that click a banner, you get 1 click. It's quite crazy, really, if you think about it. And, you know, it's interesting because if you think about it, you know, you all kind of said between 1 and 10%. Now, most people I speak to never click on banners. I actually quite like banner advertising because typically it's relatively targeted to me. So I don't have a problem with it and I do click on them. But a lot of people don't, and they say they don't click on banners. And that's why banner advertising is sold on a CPM, a cost per 1,000, because it's an awareness driver. Now, it can drive sales.
If you remember, I clearly state that all channels can do everything. If I look at display advertising, I can do fantastic remarketing through display. Someone's, nearly purchased the product from me. I can remarket them with a special offer. So it does have other benefits. But from a general purpose, because people are not clicking on them, it's not a conversion channel. It's an awareness channel, although we can make it drive sales. So if our budget isn't finite and quite small and we're trying to drive sales, display shouldn't even be in our psyche. It should be over here. We should be looking at email marketing and search marketing. So really, really key thing to understand. And also we can get our click-through rates up depending on how we run these campaigns. But typically display is an awareness channel, and this just shows it. And if you think about it, if we're paying $100 CPM, so $100 for 1,000 people to see our advert, and only one person clicks out of those 1,000 people, our cost per click is in essence $100 because we're paying $100 CPM. We get one click. It's $100 cost per click. Now that might be cheaper than other medium to get that cost per click. In Google, we might be paying $150 cost per click, so it works. But that's the kind of maths we need to do. So when we do display, how can we target? And it's a very, very exhaustive list of how we can target people. And we can overlay all of these targeting options. So I'm just going to show you them. I'm not going to read them because there's shed loads of them. Are they a man or a woman? Super relevant on certain products, let's be honest about it. How old are they? I'm not going to sell life insurance to an 18-year-old boy. What do they look like? And these ones are quite interesting when we look at affinity and custom. What else do they do? What are they interested in? So if you think about it, I could do detailed demographics. Their household income's this. They're female. They're based in Greater Sydney. And they're massively into running marathons. It's actually super, super targeted, but I can take it a stage further. They came to my website. They were actually on a purchase page. And these ones on the right, customer lists and similar audiences, are super, super powerful. Now, it talks about Google. Everyone's got the same thing. Facebook, whatever, they all have similar audiences. And the ability for you to either upload email lists or to do it on a cookie basis, where you turn around and say, well, let's target my customers. And let's talk about the effectiveness of that. So we're a retailer, or we're someone where we can bring people back to make more purchases from us. Well, we know a customer who's already purchased from us is much, much more likely to repurchase from us because they've got an account set up, they trust our brand, they know us. We've done the brand awareness piece. So to upload a customer list and to pay or target previous customers differently from prospects, well, of course you would do that. You'd be an absolute lunatic not to. So the ability to upload those lists is worth its weight in gold. But then what I really like is what we can then say to most of these advertising channels, TikTok, Facebook, Google, etc., is say, well, here's these lists of these people. Find me people who are similar to them. So what's their user behavior? What's their demographic? So I upload this list and, Facebook knows that these people are predominantly, I don't know, between this age bracket, this household income and whatever other metrics they have. Find similar people to them for me. Of course that's going to work. And these are really, really powerful ways of getting to display to drive sales for you. And the list is exhaustive. So let's look at, another 4 ways that we can target people. Think about life events on Facebook. I mean, we're giving Facebook all of this information about who we are. I just got engaged. Think about what we can do. I'm about to move. I've just gone on holiday. They can see that you're on holiday because of, your location settings. I used to be based, every day in Surrey Hills, and now all of a sudden I'm in the NT. Well, I bet you're on holiday there. So it gives you that ability to do this kind of crazy targeting. So, when we're doing display, it should never be this broad brushstroke approach. Even if we're spending large budgets, we can still be super targeted, but display, as I was saying, is still predominantly an awareness channel. So I'm going to talk quickly about digital TV. And this is a source is, as you can see at the bottom, Screen Australia 2018. And it seems like an old case study because it's 2 years ago, but it's a really, really unique data set, which I can't see a Screen Australia producing for a couple of years. A new CEO went there and got this piece commissioned, and it was just, it cost them a lot of money. And what they were doing is they were talking about how people consume TV differently. And for advertisers currently, this is really important because, again, TV is an awareness driver. You know, we're not looking for it to drive sales. We're trying to get our brand in front of people. And again, because TV is moving digital, it's in the hands of more brands. Gone are the days where you have to be, you know, I don't know, Westpac and Telstra to be able to afford TV. We as smaller advertisers can start to afford TV now. And if it's not TV, we can afford video. And we should definitely be looking at these as channels for us. So the light blue is 2014, the dark blue is 2017. As a percentage, what it was asking, you know, were people using broadcast TV? So we can see that the utilization of broadcast TV has dropped, not surprisingly. Has it dropped massively? No, and it's still the winner. Then we talked about broadcast catch-up TV. Now, catch-up TV has come on massively. And if we look at the way that the more traditional TV companies are doing catch-up TV, they're doing it pretty well. And we can actually just target catch-up TV specifically in a more programmatic fashion. So again, we can make that work really effectively for us, and we can see that increasing. Now we come to these funny ones. So SVOD is subscription video on demand. Now, if you look at that, that's the biggest winner in this 3-year period. Subscription video on demand is Netflix, Stan, Binge, etc., etc. So we can see that's kind of massively increased, and really at the moment doesn't really give us an advertising. They don't really have advertising models. They are moving towards that, especially Netflix. Apparently, it's going to have a freemium model, from what I understand, but we can't really advertise from that. And then this is quite interesting. We've got advertising video on demand. So again, massive increase. Now here, this is where we can advertise very effectively. And obviously the biggest advertising video on demand is YouTube in this country for obvious reasons, and probably in, you know, most countries around the world. So great advertising medium. Loads of us are, you know, consuming video on Facebook, I'm sorry, on YouTube, and we can go and advertise there. And again, platforms like Facebook will also be there. And then the biggest loser is TVOD, which is transactional video on demand. And really the key player there was the Apple TV. Do you remember those little boxes? I'm sure loads of you have got it, and you know, it's probably in your loft or in your bin somewhere. But you know, that was going to that was really ruling the roost in 2014, but it's dropped off a cliff. But if we look at the way that we're consuming video as consumers, huge opportunity for us as advertisers to target these people, specifically, to my mind, catch-up TV and advertising video on demand. Same information broken down a bit more, and these are the key ways that we're consuming, or the key channels we're using, comparing 2014 to 2017, and the different colors represent how we're utilizing this channel or how much we're consuming. Are we consuming YouTube on a daily, less monthly, or you're aware of it but you don't use it, or you're not aware of it? So interestingly, in 2014, about 24% of the Australian population were not aware of YouTube, which beggars belief, but you know, that's what the study tells us. Compared to 2017, where pretty much everyone knows about it. But what we can see in 2017 is, you know, YouTube, Netflix, and then these three catch-up TV channels are being viewed at least 50% or by 50% of the population daily. Great opportunity for us to target these people to drive awareness. So, you know, digital is now, you know, come in the realms of the smaller advertiser as such. So going back to awareness, display works really well. We buy on a CPM basis, and we can buy video on a CPM basis as well. And if we look at our old friend YouTube, wealth of ability to advertise people. We've got pre-rolls, which we all know. It's for HM. We've got this kind of display up here as well. And then we've got another ad here as well. So, you know, we can see within this one video, 3 opportunities to target somebody basically. So a wealth of opportunities. And actually YouTube works very well from a conversion perspective at the moment. So if you're trying to do conversion campaigns, I definitely have YouTube on that conversion portfolio of channels that you're using. So it'd be wrong of me to do a webinar without TikTok. I'll be honest with you, much to my wife's dismay, I'm slightly addicted to TikTok at the moment. I don't use Facebook. I'm quite into TikTok, which I'm definitely not their target audience, I'd suggest. But a really interesting platform we're utilizing for a lot of our clients. I mean, it's awful video content, I'll be honest with you. It's really kind of base level video content where we've all become publishers, which we all are, or video publishers, and we can do some awesome targeting. And I don't know if you're aware, but they're massively building up the amount of people that are working there, and they're making a real push to become a major player in the video space in Australia. And it's worth looking at, especially if we want to drive awareness to their target market, which is typically a younger audience than myself, but definitely worth looking into. And just shows you the growth in video as an awareness channel in Australia. Now I've included Spotify in here as well. Again, using it for awareness. You know, I wouldn't be using it for a conversion campaign, but you know, yes, we can still advertise on traditional radio, but here we can advertise in a digital sense with much smaller budgets than we would do if we're going out to a traditional radio broadcaster. So again, it's putting that kind of medium in the hands of a smaller advertiser. I mean, larger advertisers still use it as well, obviously. And again, we can be very targeted in the way we target people based on not only their interest in the type of music they're listening to, but again, by that kind of display targeting, interest, age, gender, location, etc. Again, location is pretty powerful if you think about it. So if we look at awareness channels, these are kind of new channels that we should also be looking at as well. Social media is an interesting one because I'll talk to you about social media as a conversion campaign later, but it's also great for awareness. I mean, let's look at the nature of this. If we look at this, this is Pinterest. 20 jobs that let you travel the world. I mean, of course, that's awareness. You know, I'm a 43-year-old man with 2 dependents and a business and a mortgage. I'm not going anywhere. You know, I've got a job. I can't leave it. I'm trapped. I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I am. So, you know, social media can be very awareness for people, where we exhilarate them on what the potential is and on these beautiful, iconic places that they could travel to, or, you know, these kind of dream things. So, you know, it's really important to understand that social media plays 2 roles, really kind of awareness based, but also is quite good at conversion, and it really spans, you know, the both, depending on how you're utilizing it. Now, anyone who did the content marketing course would have been probably aware of these next slides. So I'm going to try and mix it up a tiny bit, but we use content as well. And again, content can convert if we're building content that is product based. You know, why is my product different to someone else? Why should you buy, I don't know, Zero as opposed to my Urban Reckon? But most of the content we're producing on a regular basis, blog-esque, kind of topical content, and it's awareness content. It's not there to drive a conversion. It's there to drive people to your brand. Someone goes to Google and they search it and they find it. We're emailing our database and saying, kind of check out this latest post. So the way I put content here is very much aligned with driving awareness. Now, this, if you have a look over here, this is something called Outbrain. And there's other ones like Plister. There's financial specific content distribution networks. So if we're doing content, we can use these networks to distribute our content. But also the content we put on our own website should drive awareness. And I've just put up a few case studies of some of the work that we've done over the years. I'm not saying it's fantastic, but you know, it did what we wanted to do. So here we produced a piece of content which was pulling on something we knew we knew that our market was interested in, which is, are people happier working client side or agency side? And we built an infographic. You know, it works. I'm not a massive fan of infographics, but they do work. And interestingly, what we found was, what the data suggested was that agency side marketers are less happy, get paid less, but don't want to move, and work harder, but don't want to move to a client side role. And the client-side marketers know they're getting paid more, know they're working less hours, and don't want to move. So it kind of makes agency-side marketers seem a bit stupid. But you know, just a really nice piece of content, pulling on the heartstrings that we knew it would do. Here's just a piece of editorial content that we produced about going and trying out one of our clients' experiences and producing some simple editorial content. And here's where we did something for, they're called 360 tours. It's for Google My Business, where you get a 360 tour of a venue. We were trying to convince a client to do their own, so we did ours. But again, content, again, is quite awareness. If you're building content that's kind of blog content and you're trying to get it to drive conversions, you're probably wrong. What we're trying to do is we're trying to drive awareness and people to our website. And it's really important when you do content, you should work it off the normal metrics. You know, how many people saw that piece of content, CPM? How many people clicked on that piece of content, cost per click? And we should compare it to the same metrics, because if we're putting a piece of content on our website and let's say only 20 people saw it, and that piece of content cost me, I don't know, $2,000 to produce, you know, you can do the maths. It probably hasn't worked out. $100 per click or per view. You're probably better off doing paid advertising. So it's really important when we're doing content, does it make financial sense for us? And I think too often people don't measure that and don't look at it. I won't go through the rest of that. I think I'll leave that. But so really, what are our dreaming conclusions? And when I mean dreaming, I mean awareness. So different channels drive a different response. And when we look at awareness channels, we're looking predominantly at display, video, audio, content, kind of the key areas that we would kind of look at from a branding point of view, and social media, actually, I should probably add on there. So, you know, we're going to do specific channels. And really, the question whether we do awareness or not depends on the size of your budget and what you're trying to do. Now, a lot of us want to drive acquisition, and we've got smaller budgets. So a lot of this work we wouldn't do. What we would focus on more is at the bottom of the funnel, which is what we're going to talk about now. So we need to drive sales. Awareness is great. We need to make money. So going back to the old funnel, you know, we've kind of done this awareness and interest, and now we're evaluating and sale. Obviously, I can't go through each one of these because, you know, it's a 2-hour webinar, and I'm sure even an hour and 10 in, I'm sure you're all pretty stressed and drained. So we've gone to the right-hand side. We've moved away from this dreaming, and we're moving to planning and booking. Really, predominantly booking is what we're talking around. So what you can see is I've grayed out the top, because we're more down at the bottom. And what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the right-hand side, and we're not going to talk about email marketing today. We're going to talk around social marketing and search marketing. I'll let you read this. So unfortunately, for a lot of people who turned the SEO one, we are going to kind of go back onto this, but not everyone attended those courses looking at the names. There's a mix and match. So we're going to start with search. Now, I'm definitely like a search geek. Search is kind of my thing, because if you remember earlier, 45% of digital ad dollars in Australia go on paid search. And over 50% of all ad dollars in Australia go on digital marketing. So therefore, a basic rule of maths, 25% of every dollar spent in advertising in this country is on search marketing. So, you know, that's the reason why we kind of give it this love. And the reason it's so effective is it's a demand-based medium. And again, I know a few of you have had this presented to you, so I apologize, but you know, it's the nature of the beast and the fact that we're doing this kind of digital overview. Because if you think about traditional advertising, and in fact, if we think about display advertising, we are broadcasting to a market. If we think about video advertising, if we think about Spotify, TikTok, you know, we're targeting people based on a perception of who they are, rather than what they want. Yes, they might be, you know, the right target market, but doesn't mean they want my product. You know, maybe they hate my brand. So fewer receptive, fewer have a current need, and some just can't get to the fewer can be convinced to activate with your brand. For example, I hate, and I tell people this a lot, and I probably shouldn't do, I don't like Allianz. I would never buy an Allianz product. So as much as Allianz target me, you know, I'm never going to advertise, I'm never going to use their products, and therefore it's wasted dollars. The search marketing is unique, it's demand-based. And what we'll do is we're going to talk very quickly about SEO, and then we'll talk about very quickly about paid search, and then we'll talk a bit about social media. So we go to Google, Bing, DuckDuck, wherever we're going. Very important to know that actually, you know, Google isn't the largest search engine in the world. It's actually Baidu. If you're looking at daily searches, just as an FYI, Baidu is the largest search engine in China. And actually, if we go to other countries, if you go to Korea, it's Naver. If we go to Russia, it's Yandex. So I know we're a hugely Google-centric market. In fact, one of the most Google-centric markets in the world, in the top 5. But globally, it's not necessarily the case. So when we look to target other countries, we need to understand whether Yahoo is that biggest search engine in that country. So we know that when you do a search, we get with the SEM, paid search, pay-per-click. In other countries like the UK, we don't call it SEM, but we do in Australia and New Zealand. So there's this key differentiation between the two. One, we pay to feature. So it's, if we talked about assets earlier, like paid, earned, and owned, this is paid at the top. And our website is kind of a mix of earned and owned, probably more earned when we talk about Google and the search engines. We know that about 30% of people click on the paid and 70% on the organic. It doesn't really matter which one, like both. I don't want to lose 30% of market share. Like I'm not going to say I'm only going to do paid SEO. And I don't want to do just SEO, because the problem with SEO is Google changed the algorithm. I drop out of the rankings, I got nothing. So really you want both. And the other thing that's interesting about doing both, if you think about it, paid search is much more reactive. COVID hits. I can change my creative like that tomorrow. I can turn my campaign off. I can change the keywords I'm bidding on. I can change everything instantly. Can't do that with SEO. And paid search enables us to do some really interesting things. I can change the price I'm prepared to pay for a click based on the inventory that I have, based on what my competitors are doing, based on the health of my business. You know, I can do so much. It's so much more reactive. So the question of whether we do paid search or SEO isn't one purely on where people are clicking. It's done on so much more. And the reality of it is you should always be doing both, because one's 70% and one's 30% of the market. And obviously those numbers really depend on so many different things. They depend on the target market, the demographic of people you're trying to get in front of. It depends on your competitor set. It depends on your advert. It depends on so many things. But as a rough rule of thumb, we look at 70-30, and you want to be there for both. Now, again, and I hate to repeat myself, but I know we did this on the SEO one, so you're going to have to bear with me. But the reason I'm doing this is because I want to relate this back to to display. Because remember, we talked about display being an awareness channel. Now, I'm not going to do a poll because we've done that before with these guys. Really what I'm interested in is what the different cost per click is. A lot of people aren't aware of what a cost per click actually costs. People think they're going to buy, I don't know, a click for 50 cents. It's just not like that. Let's go back to display. We know at Google currently, to bid on the word life insurance in paid search, if someone clicks on it, it is going to cost that advertiser $1.50. Do not click on their adverts. In fact, never click on your competitors' adverts. You're just giving Google money. Google don't like to pay tax. It's not good for the Australian economy. Only do it if you're a consumer. If they're a competitor, you know, you're not doing anyone any favors. So, especially if you're in life insurance. But if a consumer clicks on an advertiser's life insurance advert, it costs that advertiser $150. A lot of money. So maybe it would be cheaper for that advertiser to do display advertising, even though the click-through rate is on average 0.09%, it might be cheaper. Because if they're paying $100 CPM, cost per 1,000 impressions, so they're paying $100 for 1,000 people to see their advert, and they get one click, that means their cost per click is $100, which is considerably less than the $150 they're paying on Google Ads. So when sometimes paid search becomes very expensive, an awareness medium like display might come into effect and actually be more effective. And that's why I wanted to present this. So as much as paid search works extremely, extremely well, typically drives a lower cost per acquisition than display, it is not always the case. And that's why we need to, take our own personal situation into account when we're deciding where we're going to spend money. And another thing that I really like around paid search is that we can tell the intent behind a keyword by what advertisers are prepared to pay for it. If we look at these 3 keywords, we know, again, looking at our funnel, life insurance calculator is at the top of the funnel. It's driving awareness. They don't know what they can afford. They don't know how much it's going to cost them. They are researching. They're in the awareness phase. Life insurance, they're kind of in the middle. Life insurance quote, I want a quote. I am ready to buy. So we can tell by those keywords where they are in the funnel, and the cost tells us the same. And again, it comes back to this, dreaming, planning, and booking, or awareness through to buying. The different cost per click tells us where that person is, which is super, super interesting. The nature of the beast and what people are prepared to pay in an auction can tell us where they are in this awareness consideration funnel. So how does paid search work? I'm going to teach you in a very, very basic fashion for obvious reasons. So an advertiser bids on a set of keywords. It is important to note that a robust paid search campaign for the kind of clients that we're running, which most of you are, will have thousands, if not tens of thousands of keywords in it. Some of our clients have hundreds of thousands of keywords in it. We're bidding on vast, vast amounts of keywords because we want maximum control of the way our campaign works. So we bid on a set of keywords, which could be thousands. When a consumer searches, an ad appears. And the ads are complex. There's so many different types of adverts we can build, of ads, units we can build. The problem with the ads, though, if you look at them, they're dull as dishwater. They're text adverts. There's a beautiful couple in there. There's no fantastic location with a palm tree. They're ugly text adverts, and people don't read the whole of the text advert. And we need to get across a lot in that text advert. We need to get across a unique selling point. Why us? We need to get a call to action. Buy now, compare now. And we need to get, all of that across in a minimal amount of characters. So when when advertiser bids on a set of keywords, or when a consumer searches, our advert appears. And the position of our advert depends on a number of things that we'll talk about in a second. And then we know when a consumer clicks on our advert, the advertiser pays a cost per click. We spoke around that. When you're buying conversion media, we want to buy on a CPC, a cost per click, or a CPA, a cost per acquisition. And we know some clicks can be, up to $200, if not more. So what do we pay per click? So we know, maybe a sale is only worth $100 to us. So you're not going to pay more than $100 cost per click. So probably the most important thing is that we limit what we're prepared to pay per click based on what we're trying to achieve. But Google, Bing, Yahoo, Facebook, all of them add quality metrics. Now, I apologize for what I'm going to say next, but back in the day when all the search engines were around, all of the advertisers was porn and gambling. Porn and gambling fuel a lot of change in technology. And when the search engine was around, it didn't matter what you search for. You'd often, search for life insurance, you come up with porn and gambling websites. And what Google realized was, well, that didn't work because what it was doing is it was upsetting the consumer, because the consumers come into Google and the results just aren't good enough. So the consumer would go to another search engine, and that didn't work for Google. So Google introduced this thing called quality score. Yahoo have got quality index, same, just different name. And what they started saying, well, I'm going to make the cost per click cheaper for that advertiser if the experience they provide the consumer, the person doing the search, is better, is great. So what they said is, I want a great landing page quality. If they're taking someone to a landing page, I want to know it's great. What makes up a good landing page? Speed, accessibility, the information's easy to understand. It's not white text on a white background. It's got loads of information on it. The consumer doesn't bounce back quickly. So Google literally will go and scrape the landing page that we're using to say, is this any good? What we'll then look at things like account history. We've been running an account with Google for years. The longer we've been running an account, the more Google respects about our account, the cheaper our cost per click will be. Historical CTR. CTR means click-through rates. So if loads of people click on our advert, it's telling Google that people like our brand. And that's why often big brands actually pay a lower cost per click, because they have brand awareness. And that's why display and TV can work and can make your costs on Google cheaper, because you've got better brand awareness. And so that click-through rate's really important. But probably two of the key things is this relevancy. Relevancy of ad keywords to an ad, and relevancy of keyword and ad to the search term. Does the keyword match the creative, and does the creative match the landing page? Or rather the other way around, does the landing page match the creative and the keyword? Is there a kind of a symbiotic relationship between the three? Because if you do what Google does, it makes your cost per click a lot cheaper. So if you think about in the case of a life insurance, if I could take my cost per click from $150 to $50 or $80 because my quality score is perfect, makes total sense. And therefore, when we do paid search, it's really important about looking at the health of everything, including our website, which again comes back to the first point we were talking about earlier when we talked about building a website. You've got to build beautiful digital assets. And Google, from a paid search perspective, Facebook from a social media perspective, makes us do the same as well. We are going to come to an end probably pretty quickly, to be honest with you. I didn't really want to go for 2 hours. I felt it was too long. And again, some of you would have seen this advert before, or this video. If I can get it to play, which it actually looks like I can't. Okay. All right. Well, that's not working. I don't know why. All right, well, let's forget the video. I was going to give you a bit of an intro. If anyone's interested, I'll tell you what I'll do. I've got all of your details, and you've probably got mine anyway. Ping me and I'll send you a video. It was a bit of an intro to SEO, but it's not the be all and end all. I don't know why the link's not working, but instead of messing around and taking 10 minutes, I'll just send it to you if you're interested. But it just talks about an overview of how the search engines work in 5 minutes. But I apologize for the technical glitch. So how do the search engines work, and how do rankings work in a text basis? I'll let you read this. SEO back in the day was very, very difficult. And it is still very difficult, but the difference is it's a lot more common sense. Back in the day, it was all about technology, and unless you're a developer, you couldn't do SEO. But now, we as marketeers can do great SEO. Yes, we need great technology. But if we write content that is beautiful, if we write content that is highly informative, that's long form, that provides value to the consumer, it will help our SEO. If we do great digital PR, if our brand is in industry press, if the brand is in national press, if our company has been talked around by other companies, if those companies are linking to us, our SEO will be great. If we build our site, when we put new pages on our site, we think around the consumer, and we put the correct tags on the website, we can do great SEO. And really, as marketeers today, SEO is much more in our hands than developers. I think as long as we get the development, the tech right, we can do great SEO by thinking logically. is what I'm doing good for my brand? Am I providing added value to my customers? And if the answer to those questions is yes, then you're doing SEO, you just don't know about it. On the flip side, if you're putting content on your website because you feel like you have to, and the content's rubbish, it's average, it's not long form, there's no value, you know, a consumer could find that anyway, you're probably doing stuff that's detrimental to your SEO. And really, when we talk about SEO, it's called organic search. If you're doing things organically and naturally, you're in a great position. And that's really the key thing to think about when you're doing SEO. And when we do SEO these days, we need to think about doing video. Now, we spoke around with the IAB and PwC, how much more video content was being produced. And if we're producing video content, again, it needs to be of value. Don't stick, you know, advertorial stuff on YouTube. Put help guides, information that's going to actually be of value to people. You know, if you don't think it's of value to someone, don't bother doing it. And you know, if you're going to invest into video, make sure you don't need the highest quality production, but make sure it's decent quality production. But more importantly, provide value. Make sure it's interesting. And if it's not interesting, don't bother doing it. A lot of us have frequently asked questions on our website. Again, really, really interesting. Let's, you know, find out what questions people are asking and let's answer them in a detailed and informative fashion. Again, great ways of bringing people to the website. If we're doing shopping, then again, we can do shopping feeds. And if we're doing PR, let's make sure it goes out to the national press so we can be in the Fin Review and the Australian, et cetera, et cetera. But when we're doing SEO, it's not just about optimizing, you know, text. It's about optimizing everything we do. If we're in, you know, fashion or travel, we should be optimizing our images. But we should spend a lot of time optimizing all of our digital assets. Now, I'm going to flick through a lot of this because, you know, a lot of this would have been presented, as I said, in the previous SEO sessions, but for those who weren't there. So when we think about SEO, I spoke to you about thinking about doing things that were organic and beautiful. And the two key things that I'd like you to think about is our friend Penguin, which was an algorithm update introduced in 2012, but is being updated literally, you know, it's being updated automatically almost daily. So I'll let you have a quick read about what Penguin is. So a backlink is really important for SEO. It's like a vote of confidence from another site. And what that vote of confidence does, it makes you rank better. Now, you as marketeers have the opportunity to do links the whole time. You know, you might do a sponsorship of a charity event, get that charity to link to you. You will have partners, get them to link to you. You might be writing content that features on other people's websites, get them to link to you. I'd always be looking around, how can I organically obtain links? And that should be something that's really key to you. The only other algorithm update, and I'll leave SEO at this point, that you should be aware of that's relevant to you is Panda. And this comes back to the point that I was raising a second ago. If the content isn't good, don't put it on your website. And you should be looking at your content and you should say, does it rank in Google? And you can use a tool called Google Search Console to do that. And if it doesn't, well, it's not very good. How many people viewed that content, whether it be through an EDM or through Google or through Facebook? And what was my cost per view? Was it worth doing? And did it drive any sales? And we know that content often isn't a sales tactic. It's more of an awareness, but I'd be looking at the way that I would do content. As I said, as marketers, if we do beautiful content, we'll be helping our SEO. Now, I won't go through this because I said we've kind of gone through this before. One of the things that you can do is you can look at a lighthouse report. And again, I show you how to do this lighthouse report, where you go to your Chrome developer tool and you open Lighthouse and you generate the report, and it gives you these 4 key metrics, or sorry, 5. Performance is speed. Accessibility is, you know, can people read your site? Is it accessible? SEO is SEO, and best practices, you know, do you have like a spammy plugins, etc. But you can do a very quick technical review of your website by doing this. and seeing if your website's any good from an SEO perspective. But SEO from a conversion point of view should be one of your mainstays, and probably should be 70% of all your website's traffic and conversions. Another channel that we should be using would be LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn in essence is display. It's also social media, so we could drive awareness to it, but here I put it as conversion. A very important thing to understand is if you are B2B, it doesn't mean you can't do Facebook and TikTok and you should only be doing LinkedIn. Really, really important thing to understand is that a CEO, a CTO, a head of HR, a digital marketeer is all of those things. It doesn't matter where they are. It doesn't matter whether they're on LinkedIn or Facebook, they all still have the same role. And what we find is LinkedIn from a cost per click perspective is expensive. You'd be paying anywhere between, I don't know, 10 and 15 bucks cost per click, whereas Facebook is much cheaper. So I can still get that CTO on Facebook, but a lot cheaper than I can get them on LinkedIn. And the other thing to understand is that typically LinkedIn is a social media channel that you snack at. I want to do something, I go there, I get it, I leave. Whereas Facebook, people gorge, you know, they're sat there and they're stuffing their face all day on Facebook. And so the difference is that Facebook typically works better than LinkedIn. Now that's not always the case, but typically it is. So even though I put LinkedIn as a conversion medium, LinkedIn is one of those that can do conversion and awareness. And even though I can target people by job function, sometimes I can't be that targeted. The pool of people I want to target is too small. So I think we have to be very careful as B2B marketeers about not doing what we seem to be consumer advertising like Facebook. So be careful with LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is improving its platform the whole time from an advertising perspective. And I think if you are doing B2B, obviously utilizing things like InMail, et cetera, is super, super effective. But I would certainly be testing LinkedIn if I'm doing B2B advertising. And if I'm doing B2B advertising, I definitely wouldn't discount consumer-based marketing such as Facebook. So we'll all know about advertising on Facebook. Huge diverse range of advertising that we can do on Facebook. And huge change in the way it's kind of structured the whole time. Facebook does work well depending on the product set. And the reason why I put Facebook as conversion is you can be very, very targeted on Facebook. I mean, we can really, really, you know, find our target audience and hone in quite tightly. And I just kind of wanted to give you a few of the ways that you can do this. And quite interestingly, you can do this through your own consumer account. You don't need a business account, so you can understand how to target somebody. You just don't put your credit card details in, and you can basically build a campaign. Here I've shown you, they can go and create an ad. I can target people on location. So I can do radius targeting. Here it's in miles. The interface is naturally in miles because they're an American company. You know, I can people who live in this location, recently in this location, or traveling in this location. So I can even change within the locational sphere, you know, how I'm targeting those people. I mean, obviously, someone living in this location is very different to someone, you know, traveling in this location. It tells you a hell of a lot about that person and change your targeting options. I can target them on demographics. And this is really interesting to me. You know, I can do the demographics, interests, and behaviors. And because we're giving Facebook so much information, again, I can be super targeted. You know, and this analogy that I've given is, you know, I'm targeting people within the radius of the largest airport in London. You know, I'm thinking, well, you know, people 50 miles of London, the Heathrow, are more likely to travel. I can target them by demographics. And then I can target them based on frequent travelers. You know, I want people who travel regularly. This is a travel brand, for example. I want them to be degree educated because you know, I'm going to try and take them onto some kind of, you know, educational type holiday. I want them to be interested in photography because I'm going to give them a creative that has a photography steer to it. And I want to make sure they've got enough money. So I want, you know, a financial income bracket. So really on Facebook, I can be super targeted. So even though we talked about display earlier being a kind of more brand awareness, when I kind of look at Facebook, even though it is basically display advertising, because I can be so super targeted, I can also make it just perform very well. And that's it really, guys. I think just to go back to it, the key thing to understand is there's three things we need to be looking at. Is, do we have the right digital assets, whether they be paid, earned, or owned? And if they're owned, we need as many owned assets as we can get, so we can control our brand in Google. And so if someone comes across one of those owned assets, we can convert them into a sale. Stage one. Stage two is, do we have the budget to do awareness? And if we do have the budget to do awareness, how do we do that? And how do we measure it? Because we shouldn't be measuring awareness on conversion. We should be measuring on awareness metrics like CPM, cost per mil. And then really what we want to do is we want to put a maximum amount of budget into conversion. And conversion type campaigns typically are paid search, SEO, and social media. And we need to be looking at those types of things. Now, I really, really appreciate your time today. I know it's a lot of information in a short period of time. The video will be on demand on Zoom. We'll also put it up on the Indago website shortly when I can get around to that, hopefully later on today or tomorrow. And really, really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you very much. Enjoy lockdown if you're in Melbourne. Enjoy the rain if you're in Sydney. No idea what's going on in New Zealand. See you all very soon, and thanks again.